Hi, I'm Matt Meyer, Technology Evangelist with SparkHound. I saw that there was a lot of information out there using the PnP modern search web parts using the SharePoint search settings. And what I wanted to do was to go through and take a look at what setting up the modern search would take. Now, the modern search uses the Graph API, and with everything that's in the news about Bing and ChatGPT and that kind of thing, I wanted to make sure that I knew how to do this kind of setup so that I could take advantage of those features once they became generally available. When I told CEO Sean Usher about this, he said, "Matt, isn't there something better you can do with your time?" So I decided to make a video. Let's get into it. So here we have the document library that I'm looking at. This is just some PDF files. This is actually hooked up to Microsoft Syntax, and I do have an AI model that's reading information from this particular from these documents. I grab the lessee, the lease effective date, as well as the rental amount. This expiration date is a calculated column based upon the lease effective date and the term of the actual lease. What this does then is I now have these columns of metadata, and what you need to do here is anytime you're dealing with any type of search, what you need to do is make sure that these are made managed properties. And in this particular instance, what I want to do is I want to use these for filtering and sorting and that kind of thing. So I'm turning them into the refinable managed properties. So each one of these I've created as a refinable property. If you go, how do you do that is you go into your settings, and it depends on if you're doing it for the site collection that you're on, or if you're doing it as for all site collections. In this particular instance, I'm doing this as in the site collection. So I'm taking a look here. I'm going to the site information and then into the site settings. And in the site settings, there is a schema. If you go into the schema, you will see the managed properties. Now this is just I have it pulled up here in another term, or in another tab here. So you can see here the refinable decimal 00 I have as the rental amount. I also have the refinable string, and the refinable string is going to be the lessee. And finally, there it goes, is going to be the lessee. And then finally, I have a refinable date, and the refinable date is my effective date. So this will pull up in just a moment. There we go. So refinable date right there for that particular field. All right. So we know our columns, what we're going to use, and we know the site. So let's go to the home page of this particular site, and we're going to say new, and we are going to go to the page. So I'll create a new page. This is going to be just a blank page. We'll open it up here, and then I'll give it a title, which is the name. So we'll say this is search page. There we go. All right, so now we have here, we've got some text, a text web part. I'm not going to have any text here. So what I'll do is I'll just go ahead and I'll delete the web part. Get rid of that. I'm going to go into the section, and I am going to make it 1/3 right section here. So in this area, I'm going to add my primary web parts. And the primary web parts here we're dealing with are the PnP search box, the PnP results page, or results. And over here on the right, what I'm going to do is I'll put our filter web part. Okay, so now I can put all these together. The primary thing we're going to be dealing with is, of course, this search web part. So the first thing I'll do here is I am going to hook up the rest of our web parts. So don't worry about this just yet. We're going to come back here. Actually, what I have to do, I do have to worry about that. I'm going to select Microsoft Search here for this one. It's going to load some information. And the first thing I'm going to do is, you see there are 4 pages. I'm going to go next. And I want to hook this up to some some other web parts. So here is the configuration of that. So here I'm going to say the input query text. I will say yes, this is going to be a dynamic value, and the contents, the source of this is going to be my my search box, and then my search box property is going to be search query. All right, so that hooks up this web part with this one. Now what I'll do next is I'm going to hook up the filters web part. So again, connect to a filters web part. I'm going to say yes, which one, and it's going to be this one. It's very easy because they're aware of what's going on. It's easy to hook that up. So the next thing I do is I hook up the filters web part to the results web part, and it says use data from these web parts. I'm going to go ahead and just grab that one. Now you can see the GUID that's available here, and we can check that by going into this particular web part and go to the end, go to page 4 right here, and you can check that GUID out. All right, so you can have multiple search results web parts on the same page. So this is to make sure that you're hooked up to the right one. All right, so what I'll do, so these are all hooked up and they are ready to go. And what we want to do with Microsoft Search is you want to realize something, that these are, this is using the Graph API, and it's the Graph Query API. And you can kind of ask yourself, well, how do you know that? How do you figure that out? What I do typically when I'm investigating these kind of things is I hit my handy dandy F12 button, and it's going to open up my dev tools. So now we have our F12 out here, and what we can do here is we're focused on one particular thing, and this is going to be the network tab. And the network tab is going to record basically everything that happens within this. So what I'm going to do is I will force a refresh. So what we can do here is I'm going to change this in some way. So I'll change the entity type from drive items to, we'll say list and list items. We'll do that real quick. Uncheck that, and just for fun here, after that's done, we have list items that are recorded. We'll get to why we did that in a moment, and we can take a look and see what we've got going on here on the page. And you can see we have these queries. And you'll see that is connecting directly into the Microsoft, the Graph API query. And if I double click on this, it's going to go ahead, it'll open up this particular page, and this shows me the code if I were to reset this, but I don't want that. What I'm actually going to do is I'm going to go and kind of look into what this is. And this is here, it's this payload area. So let's make this bigger. So in this payload, you can take a look and see what the entity types and the things that we're sending over to that particular endpoint. So this is the body payload. So you can see here I've got drive item, I've got list item, I have all my fields that are being done. Here's my query string. My query string is star because I'm not sending anything to it right now, and all these other things that properties that I can populate. So now that I know I'm using this particular endpoint of the Graph API, and I know some of what I'm being sent it, I can kind of do some investigation on what I have available. So what I do here is I'm going to go then to the Graph Explorer. And the Graph Explorer is, and you can see I've got some things loaded in here. The Graph Explorer is one way that I can log into a tenant and begin to use my Graph API without using anything like a Postman or any type of API generator or anything like that. It's really handy if I want to test some things out. So what I want to do here is, the first thing I want to do is I want to make sure that I am only querying over the library that I'm looking for, or the site that I'm looking for. So you can see here in my query string, I've set up my file type to be PDF and my site ID to be this particular GUID. And how you find this GUID, this is the site ID of the site that I'm looking at. And really all I need to do, I've got it open right here, the site ID, all it is I take the URL of my site and I go _API/site/ID. And that sends back some XML here that tells me what my site ID is. So there it is right there. So that's a real quick, easy way of finding what my particular ID is. So if I go back here, you can see here, now these things here, the file type and the site ID, those are all areas that are managed properties within our SharePoint. So we can get them with the list item entity type. The list item entity type is only for SharePoint items. So it's important to realize when you're using the Graph API and you're using Microsoft Search, you are able to query over anything inside the Microsoft 365 system. This means I can query over messages, I can query over things that are in OneDrive, things that are in SharePoint, of course, and into Teams messages and all that kind of stuff. So what I'm doing here is I'm very specifically stating I want to use SharePoint list items, and then I'm using the managed properties within the SharePoint list items in order to pull information. And so the managed properties I'm looking for here are ID, content class, title, refinable string number 4. Now remember, that's our lessee. File doesn't exist. That is just me goofing around. And content type ID and file name. So when I hit run query here, this down here is my output. And I'll make this a little bigger so you can see it. You can see it's hitting information inside that list item, and I pull up here. I've got my refinable string, that's my lessee, and I have my file name right here. I also have the content type ID just to confirm that this ID matches my ID that I am looking at in my particular library to make sure that I am pulling back the information that I want. Okay. So now that we know what we're going to get, we know what we're looking for, what we'll do is start to set up our actual search page. So if I go back to my new page and I've got all this hooked up and I do want just list items. Now, one thing you do need to be aware of is that if I change between list item and drive item, it's actually going to prevent me from pulling the information that I want. It's only going to turn back the drive. And you can take a look at that here in the Graph API. If I go up here to my payload, and right now I just have in the entity type I have list item. If I change that to drive item, if I put a comma here, so you can have multiple items that you're searching over, but the drive item will actually override the list item. So if I run this query, it's got to go out and authenticate me. But you see here, all that information that I had here, you see the drive item is there, but I no longer have the list item stuff that I was looking at previously. So it essentially takes it away. So I can't have the drive item information in this particular query because it is going to break what I'm looking for. And what I'm looking for here is I do want that refinable metadata. So that is one thing, that is a gotcha that you do need to kind of take away here and understand. Okay, so as we get going here, we know now in our page, we want to have just our list item entity type. We don't want anything else. In our selected fields, what we're going to do is, if I go ahead and click on this, hit my right click. If I click on this, you can see all of these are checked. Now, if you're familiar with the PnP search items or search web parts, if you use the SharePoint search, you get a whole lot of information in here, things that are checked and things that aren't checked. In this situation, because this is actually an array that we send to the Graph API, we don't have anything that's not unchecked, but we don't have the ability to check anything new. One gotcha here is this particular field, this control, I can put information in here. So I can add my fields to this. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to grab from a notepad my refinable string number 4, right? I hit enter. And then if I go in here, you can see right here that has been added to my fields. Now, you also need to know that if I put something in here that does not work, it just gets skipped in the return items. So you do have to have stuff that has you do have to know ahead of time that I have information in those particular areas. So here's refinable date, and my final one is going. I'm going to put 2 in here. My refinable decimal. there, and one more is going to be my file name, so I can make sure that I have my file names. And there we go. So we're ready to go. So my selected fields are there. The next thing what I'm going to do is I'm going to edit my sort settings. And this when I change my my web part to be a grid view, I want to be able to sort by those fields. And this is the same kind of thing. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come in here and I will paste some information. So I don't want to do it by file name. So let's grab something else. You can go in and you can grab, it might have something you can drop. I like to do it this way to keep it consistent. So I'm going to say this is a refinable decimal. I'm going to call it user sort, and I'll call this my sort field display name here. The decimal is going to be rent. Right, I can click the plus then to save it and add another one. I'll add, see, you can see we have some of this stuff that's available, but our refinable stuff is not available except for my refinable decimal that I put in. So let's grab our refinable date. So we'll put that guy in here, right there. Again, I hit enter, and this is going to be a user sort. We're going to call this one effective date, hit a plus, and finally we're going to set up again, we're going to set up our refinable string number 4, which is going to be our lessee. Okay, enter, and this is going to be user sort, and it is going to be our lessee. All right, and I'll click add and save. So now my sorting is ready to go. You do want to know kind of what is going to be your default sort, otherwise it'll be the page. So I'll come here and I want to select the details list. And the details list, see here, my title is empty, and then I have some information for summary and other things. Now you can see right now I have 6,022 returns. Well, that's much too much. That's actually because I'm searching over. If we go back here to this page, you can see I'm searching over just everything. It's everything less the search terms. So what I'll do is, just like I did in my Graph API, I'm going to grab some initial filters here on the query template that says I just want PDFs and I just want to come from this site. So we'll apply that, and this is going to come down to our 5 results that we have in our list, in our library, and we're ready to go there. Now, one thing you're noticing here is that there's no title, there's no information there, and this comes from what my initial column name is. So here's my managed columns. If I go in here, there is a handlebar that gives us a link to where we want to look at. So what the fields are that we're looking at here. So we have the preview URL. All right, and then we also have the slot item title. So let's take a look and see what that slot item title looks like. Let's go back here and go into our slots. This is on the top page. And these are just kind of standard variables that you can set, so you can grab them easily and be able to throw them around with an alias. And you'll see here, this is resource.name. And if you recall from our return, we don't have a name. Our name is actually title. Our name is actually file name. So we need to update this particular property. So let's go here and we're going to hit this drop, and now we've got our refinable stuff. So this is going to be our file name. So resources.fields.filename, that's going to be our new one for here. As soon as I click save, it goes ahead and it goes ahead and populates that. So now we see a URL here. Going back, we want to make sure that our icon is correct. So we're going to use the field for our file extension. So we'll go over here. That is called our file type, and there goes our PDF. And now finally, we're going to add our columns. So we're going to come in here. I don't want anything that's created or summary, so we'll just get rid of these guys, and we're going to add something new in here. So here's our new one, and we're going to call this our Let's cancel this because I killed my title. I don't want that. So let's go manage it. So we're going to keep title, but I am going to get rid of created and summary. So here we go is our lessee. I'm going to do in here is I'll clean this up, and we're going to go in and grab our refinable string here from our list. Right, so here's our refinable string number 4, and we'll click save to see if that turns up any information, and there's our lessee. Okay, so let's go ahead and populate the rest of these. What I'll do here is my sortable. I want that sortable, and my sortable field then is going to be a refinable string, and I do want to make this resizable so I can move it around. My next one is going to be my effective date. Right, and my effective date property is going to be my date. And again, I want to make sure that this is sortable, and my sortable is going to be my refinable date. I want it to be resizable. Okay, let's add and save that one. The next one, so here we go, we have information there, and we can start to move this stuff around to see my information. You can see by the arrow, it is sortable, right? And let's go back and finish it off with one more column. So we have one more column, and that is going to be our rent. And this is going to be our rental field, which is the decimal here, and refinable date, refinable decimal. And yes, we are going to have that sortable, and this is going to be decimal, and of course resizable. All right, here we go. We've got all of our information that we want to see here, and we are ready to hook up the rest of things. So now we've got things. This is all running through Microsoft Search. We've got the information that's populating through here. So now what we want to do is we're going to configure the formatters, the search filters. So configuring the search filters, I'll go over here and I'll click configure, and that will open up this particular page. So we've got this connected into our search web parts, and we should have data that's already available. So what I'll do here again is I'm going to paste this information in here. So my filter field, and I want to make sure this is this because this is going to be the refinable area, and I'll call this lessee. Go in here, V, enter, and the template for this one is going to be a checkbox. For this one then, I'll go ahead and add and save this to make sure that that information pops up, and there it is, and it's populating with information. Okay, so now we'll add the other ones that we've got. So we're here, and I go into this one. It is effective date. And that, again, refinable date 00, because that is my refinable property that I want to work with. Right, the template for this one is going to be, we'll call it a date range. And let's plus that one, and then we're going to do our rent. And this one is going to be our, we can do that, but we're not doing that. We're doing the refinable decimal to make sure that we are selecting the right one. So there. And again, my template here, let's call this a combo box, and we are done. So let's go ahead and add and save this. So as we add and save this, we have our effective date, we've got our rent, it's a combo box, we've got all this information that we can come up in here. I can sort by my lessee, and then of course I can sort over here by my filterable information here. So this right here is the searchable web parts, and we have done everything, the PnP search web parts, and we've hooked up all of our information from our search box, and we have refiners that run across here, and that's that. I hope you found this video interesting, and with all the buzz going on with Bing and the new Microsoft Search, this is something that we kind of want to get started in and get ready for, because there's a lot of exciting things coming on with natural language query and that kind of stuff that we'll be able to press forward on. So until next time.